Just in case you did not get to see my previous video, in order for this one to make sense, you will have to check part 1 first. This one is part 2 of anorexia and body dysmorphia. When the sleep apnea was discovered, I had already planned to have a bariatric surgery done because my doctors told me that at that weight, almost 300 pounds, that would not qualify me to be placed on a heart transplant list. So that was basically the last push that I needed in order to get the bariatric surgery done. And even though I discovered that the weight problem was basically because I wasn't sleeping my whole life, I still went ahead with the bariatric surgery because also my insurance was covering it. I kept thinking like, sure, why not? Let's do it. Convinced by my bariatric surgeon, I ended up getting the most aggressive bariatric surgery. It's called the duodenal swish, and you're basically still getting the gastric bypass or the gastric sleeve, where your stomach is basically cut in half, or like 75% of your stomach is gone. And then the difference with this one is that you have like 20 feet of intestine, or the food travels through 20 feet of intestines. With this bariatric surgery, they rerouted the intestines so that the food could travel only through 10 feet of intestines and not 20. So basically what he said is that that would help me to lose the weight faster since I had that heart condition, and that it will be hard for me to gain the weight back because it creates malabsorption. But in reality, the only difference that I've noticed that is done for me is that now I don't have to sit in the bathroom for 30 or 40 minutes. I can go to the restroom very, very, very quickly. Excuse me. So at some point I was 300 pounds. After I got the CPAP machine and started sleeping, I lost around 30 pounds. So when I got the bariatric surgery, I was around 275. By the time I got hospitalized, I was 190 pounds. And while being in the hospital the first couple of weeks, I lost around 30 pounds very quickly. And the doctors explained that that was just water weight because of the condition. I used to retain a lot of liquid in my body. After losing all of that weight or water weight, the next thing that I started to lose was whatever fat I had left in my body. And after that, it was my muscles. I lost all of my muscles. With all of the procedures and the trauma that my body underwent, I started losing all of my muscles to the point where I couldn't even hold a bottle of water. I couldn't get up from the bed. I couldn't walk on my own. I couldn't stand up and stay still standing up on my own. I needed help with absolutely everything. While I was in the hospital, I always wore the hospital gown. So the hospital gown covers everything, basically. So every time I went to the restroom or I walked by a mirror, I could only see my face. I couldn't see my body. I did not notice that I was so skinny. And even though they would weigh me every day and I saw the pounds dropping, I couldn't see it in the mirror. I didn't know that I was that skinny. After a while, I couldn't eat anything. I would vomit everything. Hospital food, vomit. Food from my favorite restaurants, vomit. Food made at home, vomit. Everything I would vomit, even water. My body was rejecting all types of food, solid, liquid, you name it. It was involuntarily vomiting everything. I had to have a suction or a fluid suction tube next to me 24/7 because they didn't know when I was gonna vomit. It was just involuntary all the time. And so much so that my gastric juices would come out all the time. It was a torture. I was dropping weight by the day, 2-3 pounds by the day. They were going to put a feeding tube in me because they didn't know how else to help me get nutrition in my body. I was at the point of disappearing. I remember telling the doctors that I had the bariatric surgery, and if they could try to see if there was something wrong with my stomach because of the surgery. They never did any further examination on that. They just kept saying, oh, you need to eat. One time, one of the doctors said to me, oh, we are going to have to send you to a nursing home for sick people because you're not eating and nobody's going to have the strength to take care of you. And over there, they don't treat people well. I kept thinking, why would this doctor be telling me that? As it felt as if they thought that I was voluntarily not eating because I had given up on me. And then I told that doctor, well, I have said many times that I had the bariatric surgery, that whatever stomach I had left from that bariatric surgery, it felt as if I had closed and no food was going in there. And I've asked for further investigation to be done or further examination, and nothing has been done. So I don't know why you're trying to make me feel as if I'm not eating voluntarily, or you're trying to convince me that I have to eat because I'm going to end up dying if I don't eat. Well, silence. Everyone was very worried. Even I was very worried because I associate not being able to eat with the end of life. Because basically when somebody is going to pass away, they stop eating completely. And that's exactly what was happening to me. My thinking was, well, if I don't eat, how am I supposed to heal after having gone through this traumatic surgery? If I'm not getting any nutrition, any protein, anything to sustain my body, I'm not going to be able to get up from this bed. I'm not going to be able to heal. And so that was my biggest fear. It felt at some point as if the medical world had just given up on me, because one day all of a sudden they're sending me home and I'm still in the edge as if I'm dying. And one of two things was going to happen. I was either going to live whatever I had left in me, the comfortness of my home, or by a miracle, I would start eating again. When I was sent home, I was on a wheelchair, no strength, no muscles, and I was only 120 pounds. Now, for somebody that was 300 pounds at some point and lost all of that weight, you will usually have 10 to 20 pounds of loose skin around your body. So when you do the calculations, I was actually just 100 to 110 pounds only. And for my build, that did not look healthy at all. I looked like a skeleton with skin over it. During that time when I was sent home, I couldn't lift my torso off the bed. I could not stand up on my own. I couldn't go to the restroom on my own. I couldn't get onto the wheelchair on my own. I needed help with everything. And I remember my mom would try to cook all the things that I loved, and I just couldn't eat. I kept vomiting all day long, gastric juices coming out, and vomiting. I developed fear of food. Every time my mom would say, okay, it's time to eat, I would literally get scared and start shaking a little bit. I kept thinking like, oh my God, it's time to eat. Like, oh my God, it's time to eat. Like, I don't want to eat. Why do I have to eat? Like, I don't want to eat now. And it's just very hard to think about it and go back to that memory. How can somebody who loved or loves cooking and like trying different foods is now panicking when seeing food around? A friend of mine suggested my mother to blend the food, to do like rice, beans, and even protein and meat, and just blend it for me, and for me to drink that blended food throughout the day. And my mom would do exactly that. I cannot tell you that my stomach was strong enough to, hold to that. Like I would still vomit the food. But I kept thinking, at some point I need to be able to stand having this food in my stomach. So I just kept trying, even though I knew I was going to vomit. And my mom would use this little mug to put the food in there, the blended food. And it will take me all day long to drink this. And sometimes I wouldn't even drink the whole thing. Mind you, I was still dealing with the horrific pain that I had because of the LVAD surgery. That pain of your heart trying to survive and your insides trying to get used to a metal attached to your heart in there, trying to heal and, making space for a device that was not there, and dealing with the pain that, it made me think sometimes that death would have been an easier route. That maybe had I stayed asleep during that surgery, then life wouldn't have been so hard. But God did not let me die during that surgery, because I'm still here. So it was a combination of a lot of things. And then on top of that, now panicking every time I was eat food. It was just a wrecking mess. It was a whole movie. One day, by a miracle of God, I ate something solid. I don't remember what it was, but I remember realizing at the end of the day, oh my God, I ate something and I did not vomit. Wow. Total celebration immediately in my mind. My mother would give me like a whole plate of food as if I was gonna eat all of that, and it would overwhelm me so much. I would just take 1 or 2 bites. And then one day, just out of the blue, I asked her if she could put the food in a smaller plate. So she would use this little plate to put the food in there, and I would eat whatever amount of food I had here. So I noticed that by eating something smaller, I don't know, it would just do something to my brain, and I would eat everything in here. And then little by little, I would eat several times a day where, it was normal for me to eat again. This did not happen in 1 or 2 days. It took several weeks, probably months, before I could eat several mini plates of food during the day. So when I started eating little by little and more often, I started to gain my strength back little by little. After several months, I started to think I should probably start getting my torso up from the bed on my own and see what happened. Well, it did not happen immediately, but after several tries, one day I was able to get my torso up from the bed. After that, it was trying to stand up and get onto the wheelchair on my own. And when I was finally able to do it on my own, there was a celebration. My husband, my mother, my landlord, who is like my mother, my friends, my pastors, and even the neighbors that would see me walking outside, everybody would celebrate. I had to be very careful when standing up. I would have to use a walker in order to stand up and walk around. At some point with practice, I was able to stand up on my own without the walker, and I was able to go into the restroom and outside the restroom on my own with no help. The thing is that every time I would stand up, I had to look to the floor. I had to look where I was stepping because I still had a very big chance of falling. I used to always look down to the floor and put my hands like this, just searching for balance so I wouldn't fall. Because of that, I really never looked around or looked up because I was so scared of falling. So I always kept looking down, making sure that I knew where I was stepping so I wouldn't fall, because a fall was going to be fatal. It still would be fatal today, but back then, it wouldn't have been good. This one particular day, I went ahead and stood up from the bed, and there was a mirror on the left side of the room. So when I stood up, I caught a glimpse of my body or my shadow with the corner of my eye. And I remember thinking quickly, oh, look, I can see myself in the mirror. And then I turned and I startled. I did not recognize myself in the mirror. I was really scared because when I saw myself in the mirror, I didn't recognize the person looking back at me. And I promise, I've practiced this part of the video so many times before. Just trying to get that part out of my system, but every time I remember how I startled when I looked at myself in the mirror, I just can't help to feel hurt and so sorry for the person I was at that particular moment, so scared of that image in the mirror. I was so skinny at that moment that when I looked at myself in the mirror, it was like I was exploring something weird. I kept looking at myself. I kept looking at my arms, like I could wrap my hand around my arm and still had some space. I could wrap my hand around my wrist, like measuring space of how skinny I was. I was exploring my body. I could see my bones, my rib cage bones in the mirror. You know, my collarbones. I could fit my fist in the front of my collarbone and the back, and the bones over here that join your arm with the shoulder. I could see those bones sticking out. I remember lifting my arms. Somehow I was just exploring everything. I remember lifting my arms and I could see a giant hole inside my armpits. I still have them, but this is just a reminder of a time where I had no muscles. I couldn't walk. I was too skinny. I couldn't do anything. Remember I mentioned that in the hospital, I would have the hospital gown and I could never see my body. And because my face always was round, like even though I lost all of that weight, my face was still always chubby and round. So I really never thought that I was that skinny. And so that day when I saw myself in the mirror and I was able to see my whole body, that it was so different, and I was not the person I was when I first went in the hospital at 190 pounds. Now all of a sudden I'm 100 to 110 pounds. At that moment, after exploring myself in the mirror, seeing my scars and all of my bones out, I decided right there and then that I did not want to look at myself in the mirror again. And so every time I would pass by that mirror where I could see myself, or I could see my whole body, I would just avoid it at all costs. I would look down or look the other way, just avoiding my image in the mirror. At some point between all of this, I had a cardiac appointment and I was still using my wheelchair because I couldn't walk long distances. During this appointment, my cardiologist said to me, "You are too weak. You are too skinny. You need to gain at least 15 pounds in order for you to be placed on the heart transplant list." I immediately started laughing out loud. He asked me, "Why are you laughing? What's so funny?" I said to him, "Well, I got a bariatric surgery when you guys said that being 300 pounds, I didn't qualify to be on the heart transplant list. And now you're telling me that I am too skinny to be placed on the heart transplant list. It's too ironic and too funny." And then he goes on to say, "Well, it's not only that you're too skinny, it's that you're too weak. Because if you undergo another surgery, you're not going to survive that surgery being this weak. So the pressure was on. Now at this point, I needed to gain 15 pounds. I kept thinking, well, I started to eat again, but that doesn't mean that I'm gaining weight. I'm not gaining any weight. So how am I going to do this? I went home with this new goal in mind, and it took me a whole month to just gain 4 pounds. Only 4 pounds in a whole month. When before, just from smelling food, I would gain 15 and 20 pounds in just 1 month. I knew that I was dealing with some sort of food or eating disorder because of all the trauma my body went through with, end stage congestive heart failure and basically a non-functioning heart with multiple organ failure and just all the trauma with the surgery. I knew I was dealing with some sort of food disorder, but I did not know that I was clinically diagnosed with anorexia. I just found that out some time ago, a couple of months back, when I was reading my medical records. It says diagnosed with anorexia. With the body dysmorphia, I wasn't necessarily clinically diagnosed with that, but because of the symptoms and avoiding the mirror, not recognizing myself in the mirror, not wanting to look at myself in the mirror the way I was looking back then. So that's basically symptoms for body dysmorphia. So at that time, I kept dealing with that, the body dysmorphia part, and not being able to see myself in the mirror. So I kind of put it in the back burner in my mind. I just continued to avoid the mirror. And, I was still dealing with the eating part, getting adjusted to medication, with losing my hair, losing a layer of my skin, my whole body. That's a completely different story. I was still dealing with uncertainty of, whether or not I was going to make it. So the body dysmorphia part, I just put it in the back burner and just continued to avoid the mirror. One day, my friends decided to visit me because they had not seen me in a while. The last time they saw me, I was still hospitalized. So they wanted to do a little gathering with some snacks and food. Shout out to Tina and Las Latinas. That day was the first time I decided to look at myself in the mirror because I had to get ready to see my friends. I thought, well, they're coming and they won't stop at nothing. Even if I tell them not to come, they will still show up on my doorstep. So I have no choice. I have to do this. So I got some clothes from the closet. I put it on. I fixed my hair. And for the first time, I allowed my mom to take a picture of me. She would still take some pictures of me, like secretly, but this was the first time that consciously I allowed her to take some pictures of me. And I look like these dolls, I don't remember the name of them, but these dolls have very small bodies and big heads. That's what I look like. I look like a little kid in baggy clothes. Sometimes when that time of my life comes back to memory, I can't help to feel just so sad and sorry for the person I was at that time, because I sometimes think, I don't know how I was able to deal with so much pain, so much turmoil, uncertainty, and unacceptance all on my own, all at once, with, battling a battlefield in my mind and nobody knew about it. But when this comes to mind, I am also reminded that it was Jesus, the one looking back at me in that mirror when I couldn't see my own reflection. It was him looking back at me with his stripes, with his face bitten, with his body so lacerated that people couldn't even tell if he was a man or a woman. It was that Jesus that looked back at me when I couldn't see my own reflection. It was the power of the cross that granted me mercy and grace to be able to survive that stage and that time of my life, so that today I can speak to you about it. My heart goes out to you. If you've ever felt that you can't look at yourself in the mirror because you have endured some physical trauma, because of an accident, because of an eating disorder, because of a surgery, my heart goes out to you. And remember that the one looking back at you is looking back at you with love and acceptance. Doesn't matter what you look like or how you perceive yourself. He looks back at you with love. If you are experiencing some sort of eating disorder, or if you feel that you have symptoms of body dysmorphia, please don't hesitate in looking for the help that you need. Remember that the one who is looking back at you in that mirror is the same one who will deliver you. It's the same one who will help you see yourself the way he sees you, as a masterpiece that was worth dying for. God bless you. Peace out.
What goes down, I can't eat, I can't